and all of a sudden I was overcome with dizziness. I felt the sensation like an electronic whirring in the back of my brain. I could actually sense it. I could feel it was spherical. It was like the size of a marble. If you gave me a model of the brain, I could poke my finger in there and show you exactly where it was, just a little bit right of center in the back. And I passed out. I fell straight back, hit my head on the ground. I don't know why. There were no injuries. There were no cuts, no bruises or anything. I regained consciousness in the emergency room. An ambulance took me there. And they did $1,800 worth of diagnostics on me, X-rays, CAT scans, everything you could do, I think of. No, not everything. I was going to say what happened the next day. They sent me home, and I took a taxi back to my car, and I drove home. I was okay as far as I knew. The following day, one of my friends came to visit because I was leaving for New York the day after that, and he said I did not look right. I wasn't well, and he insisted on taking me to Miami's Mount Sinai Hospital, where we went to their emergency room. They did, the other place did like $1,800 worth of things. They did $18,000 worth of, I don't know what they did to me, but the total bill was $18,000. They told me they couldn't find anything wrong. They told me to go home and get rest and drink more water, which I'm glad for $18,000 they didn't try to put me on any kind of drugs. The following day, I flew up to New York, and I remember going to the airport. I remember the whole flight. I remember getting off the plane, and then from that point on, there was like a 6-week blackout of my memory. I wasn't unconscious. I went to my brother's house. I don't remember this. When somebody picked me up, I don't remember that. I spent 4 days. I don't remember that. Then my brother put me in the hospital. I don't remember that. And I really have like no memory except for two very kind of strange incidents in the hospital. But I had no other memory until I regained full consciousness about 6 weeks later. And during that time that I was semi-conscious, they tested me for HIV against my will. They didn't find anything else wrong with me. It was against my will, without my consent, and they put me
against your will.
Yes. And as fuzzy-minded as I was, all this stuff I'm getting is only from. I have documents from my friends who visited me. One of my friends kept kind of a diary and stuff. I refused to take the AZT. As dazed as I was, I knew that I did not want this, and they put it in my food. They literally forced me to take it, and then when I regained consciousness and was discharged from the hospital, I went to a nursing home, and there they had me on a Tripla and Mepron and something else. I refused to take the things, and they said they wouldn't treat me. They wouldn't take care of me. I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. As far as I knew, they were going to just put me out on the street, and I didn't know if I keep the wheelchair. I had nobody to take care of me. My brother was afraid to have me there because he was afraid I could infect his son. He didn't know I was positive for all those years. He only found out, last year. And my mother was in no shape to take care of me. I really had nowhere to go. I had no choice. So I figured, well, I'll take I'll humor them. I'll take the one pill a day until I get out of here, and then I'll taper off of it. I didn't know that the pill, not only was it addictive, Atripla is, I don't know if you know about the sativa in there, it's an addictive substance. It's like an SSRI.
So you're saying that AZT is in a sense like a narcotic, like cocaine or heroin.
I don't know about the AZT, but they switched me to Atripla, and that is a narcotic. It is an addictive drug. Clark Baker, if you Google Clark Baker and sativa, you'll see his findings on it, because he was surprised that people were having such a hard time getting off of these things.
Wow.
And normally the way you taper off of a toxic drug like any of these drugs, like AZT, to not shock your body totally, is you reduce the dosage by 25%, stay on that for 2 weeks, cut down to 50% of the original dosage for 2 weeks, then 25% for 2 weeks, and then no more. But you can't do this because a tripla is what they call an enteric-coated tablet. You can't cut it. If you cut it and you expose this raw stuff to your body, it's intolerable. I tried it once. I don't listen to what doctors tell me. I said, fuck it, I'll cut it anyway. I took 3/4 of an atripla. I had been taking atripla for months already, 1 pill a day. I took 3/4 of a pill. You take it at bedtime because that minimizes the effects. And when I was in the nursing home, they were giving it to me in the morning, and I got a hold of the material. One of the nurses downloaded the stuff for me from a home computer and printed it out. And I'm saying this stuff should be taken at night. And then they started giving it to me at bedtime. But they know nothing about it. They were giving me that drug with other drugs that are counterindicated with it. And anyway, I took 3/4 of one after I got out of there. At bedtime, I couldn't fall asleep until 7 in the morning. It was like tripping. That's why the whole thing, a tripla, really it's very well named. And then ever since then, I've been trying to find a doctor to help me get off of it. I was staying in Florida so that I could be there. My mother was kind of looking after me, and I was looking after her. And in Florida, I have New York Medicaid. Before this thing happened, before my diagnosis, I had a nice income. I had a 5-digit bank account and all that stuff. After the diagnosis, I basically lost all of my income. I went through my savings. I ended up in credit card debt and getting eviction notices. I've lived here since 1976.
How did this affect your income, Ed?
Well, when I had learned that the whole AIDS thing was a blunder or whatever, I started talking about it. And I think that's why I was let go. I had a great temporary job at Lazar Frere, the international banking house. I was doing late-night word processing. On a good week, I would take home $1,500. And on top of that, I was managing a movie star. I had taken in a kid when he was 18, and when he was 19, he was a star. And I was handling all of his stuff, and he took care of the rent and whatever expenses for me. He thought I was crazy, and eventually he told me, "You're fired, too." And that was it. I had 2 wonderful sources of income, and they both dried up. And that, when I was afraid of being thrown out of the apartment that I'd lived in since 1976, the stress gave me shingles, and that was not AIDS at the time, but it was considered ARC, an AIDS-related condition, and that qualified me for benefits and public assistance, and they paid my back rent, and they gave me assistance paying my rent, and then I was getting Social Security and going for charity meals. And, my life is very, very different than what it was before 1988. Actually, before I went 3 years until I, ran up debts and exhausted my credit.
Ed, in your opinion, because you mentioned what happened to yourself the first time you visited Florida, and that you believed that you were hit with some kind of drug weapon by some undercover military people or CIA or whatever they might have been.
They could just be thugs hired by the pharmaceutical companies.
And you mentioned your friend who you suspect experienced the same thing.
Well,
now,
I suspected that initially when I felt this thing in my head. This was nothing normal. It was nothing normal. It was absolutely some sort of outside electronic thing that they were doing.
In your opinion, could these be tactics that the allopathic cartel is using to maintain their credibility? So to speak?
I think so, because Matthew, the host of my show, was giving lectures. He was giving talks, and we used to invite the White House. We had an empty seat. This seat reserved for representative of the White House. Nobody ever showed up.
Wow.